Welcome to this episode of Inside the Orchard. Today, we're here with Coach Thomas, coach of the football team. Coach, just tell us a little bit about the season outlook, and we'll start there.
So far it's been pretty good. Really as you get going into football is almost like a year-round thing now. Really you start weightlifting in January. And so really we've been doing a lot of stuff since January leading up till now. You get into the summer, you get a lot of flex days. So we've been using a lot of flex days in the summer, getting a lot of practices outside, trying to slowly start to install offensively and defensively. Personally, I'm excited. Our numbers are really up. I think we're going to be around. I think we're going to be around the 90s in our numbers. So our numbers are going to be pretty high. We don't have a big senior class, which is okay. Just in numbers wise, it's a pretty small senior class. But I'm really excited about those seniors that we do have, and then some of the young talent that we have on our team as well.
Sure. With that senior class that left last year, what did they instill into this program, and what did they teach the seniors in this year's class to be able to carry on?
Yeah, I think a lot of hard work. I think, you got that group that we had last year. I don't want to start naming them because I feel like I'm going to leave somebody out, but you had, Colton Shelton, you had the Lazier brothers, Maddox Canfield, Josh Armentrout, Zach Miller. You had a lot of kids that were in our program really for 4 seasons. I think when you're in any program, you get to grow a lot, and you get to kind of, grow as a person, both as an athlete, and as a human being. So those guys, I think, really set the groundwork for hard work. We talked a lot about loyalty and how much a program and a school means to you. So I think those guys did a good example of coming in every day, working hard, and really kind of setting the example of what a student athlete should be.
Sure. And you'll get to see this face a lot this football season. This is Tucker Wine over here. Tucker, tell us a little bit about what you've seen this summer, just being around the football team, and we'll go from there.
So, from coming to practice pretty much weekly, I've seen a lot of the same people showing up, everybody putting in the same amount of effort pretty much each time. I think each practice, I just see a lot of hard work going on, and I don't really see the same people always standing out or the same people always slacking.
With that, who has stand out so far for you guys? Who do you want to lean on? Is there anyone you can pinpoint at this point? I know you guys really start kicking things off in August, but from the summer so far, who stood out?
Yeah, first off, that was a professional answer, man. He's gunning gunning for our jobs.
Taking my job.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think the unique thing about our football team this year is I don't really think we have a quote unquote standout. I think we have a collective group. You get a lot of teams where 4 or 5 guys are kind of above everybody else. I think we're going to have a group of about 20, 25 guys who are all pretty reliable. I think Tucker was exactly right with what he said. Is different guys can stand out on different days. From offensively, from a running back, from a skill position standpoint, I think we really have about 10 guys who I think can be a guy. There's a lot of names, to be honest with you. Aiden Cornell does a great job for us. I think he's a good leader. He's a good example. Greg Mathis is a good leader for us. Kason Warden does a really good job for us. He's a hard worker, gets a lot of reps for us. You got some younger guys. You got a Nate Barra. I think Nate Barra is going to have a good season. Mason Johnson, is doing a really good job. Jackson Thomas is a really hard worker for us, stepping up, doing well. Hunter James. I think we kind of have a slew of kids really from a backfield standpoint that can step up for us. Donnie Quarles, Donnie's doing a good job for us as well. From a lineman standpoint, really, it's kind of the same thing. You got a lot of kids that I think can be that standpoint for us. Damari Pearson does a good job. Shane Woodling, Evan Clark, Owen Boyce, Fernando Ramirez, Deacon Wynn. We got I checked my list. I brought my list. I want to make sure I don't forget anybody. Teddy Day. Teddy does a good job. Will Day's back with us this year. I think he'll do a good job. Owen Boyce, PJ Brinklow, Brandon Leonard. Shoot, I just named half our team. But really, between all those guys, that's a big group of guys that we're all relying on that I have a lot of faith in.
Sure. And the offense is kind of run heavy to begin with and kind of pass when you need to. Does that help to have that many backs back there, or guys you can plug and play give guys breaks, and just maybe hope that one stands out and you can lean on them a little bit more as the season goes on? Or
Yeah, I think so. I think you're exactly right. I'm a big believer in you kind of design your team around what you have. There's been some seasons where I've been the head coach here where, we've leaned a little bit on the pass game more and we've been more pass heavy. There's been seasons where we've been, one of our best teams. We had that COVID team. We were 95% run. We were ground and pound. This team, this year we have a lot of running backs. We have a big offensive line. We have a lot of running back type of guys where I think, you'll see the run game stand out a little bit more. But at the same point, we're working on our pass game, and I think it'll be a weapon too for us in some circumstances. So, I think we have the ability to do a little bit of everything.
that quarterback position, you're replacing two guys who were in the system for a little bit. I know Colton took a year off, but how do you replace two seniors who could do different things at different times with some younger guys and get them to step up and be leaders? Because even if you're not throwing the ball 85% of the time, that quarterback is still your leader on the field that everyone looks to kind of keep you emotionally in the game.
Yeah. Our offense is a little bit different in a certain sense, just because we run more. It's more, so to speak, single wing principles. So you always don't have to have that quote unquote quarterback guy back there. We got some different guys that when you talk about taking the command of a huddle on the varsity level, I think we have probably three guys that I trust to get in there and say, okay, this is our focal point. This is what we have to do. This is where we're going right now. And that's some stuff we've been kind of training a little bit in the summer. So last year we were really good because you had a kid like Colton that could step in and do that. You had a kid like Zach that could step in and do that. I think Aiden Cornell can be that kid that steps in for us and says, hey, here's what we're running right now. Here's what we're doing. And he's not the only one. Nate Barra can do the same thing. Gabe Kretzer's another name that he can step up in there, and Gabe can kind of take control. And Gabe has a pretty good arm first as well. He's been throwing a lot in our 7-on-7. So, he's another name that you could see back there as well. So, I think when you come from, what you have to just have, more importantly than anything, just a leader to step up and say, okay, guys, like us as a group, let's huddle up, let's focus on this, and this is what we're going to get done.
Sure. Defensively, who are some guys there that you think could stand out? I know Greg's back. Getting Damari back is big. He's pretty athletic there. Who are some of those guys that can lead that defense this year?
Yeah, I think Damari Pearson's kind of one of the big names. He's a defensive end type for us that can do a lot of stuff. He's an athletic defensive end. So, he's a guy that's on our track team that's qualified for the shuttle hurdles and the high hurdles. So he's an athletic kid at the defensive end position for us. Not just a big body, but a big, strong, athletic type of kid. Hunter James is another name that I really like. Hunter's a kid that's had a really good offseason for us. Worked really hard. He's probably a little bit undersized, what most people would think, but his work ethic is just off the charts. I think he's going to have a really big year defensively for us as well. Nate Barrow, we mentioned earlier. I think Nate will be pretty good. Braden Price is another linebacker that's a young kid for us that stepped up, that's done some really good things. From the secondary position, both of our safeties are returning starters, Logan Henderson and Aiden Cornell, so you have some pieces there. Donnie Quarles, Mason Johnson, it's a lot of the same names. Kaysen Warden's going to play a big role. Jackson Thomas is going to get on the field a little bit as well for us, some in the secondary. So, you have some of those different kids. Landon Kleiss is another name. There's a lot of those kids where I think we have some names that can step up and fill some big roles for us.
Sure. And special teams wise, I spent a lot of time with Eric last year, Eric Hugas. Yeah. It seems like he's really immersing himself into football. Yeah. Any changes out of him that you've seen? I know he's got a powerful leg, kind of get that accuracy down a little bit. But what have you seen out of him so far?
Yeah, two things that really stand out. One is he was in the weight room a lot more for us this year. That was something that we talked to him about, that, hey, you can be a good kicker, but the strength in that muscle, just like somebody bench pressing, that's going to help a lineman, squatting and leg extensions are going to help a kicker. So Eric's been in the weight room a lot, which I think will help to the power of his leg. Another thing, like you mentioned, is kind of his full, he's fully into football. He's not playing soccer this year. So, you're going to get to devote more of that time to working on that skill specifically with kicking. He's not splitting between two different things. So I think you'll see, just like anything else in the world, the more you practice something, the more you get good at it. So he's going to get better at that. One of the cool things about Eric is in the winter he wanted to work on kicking, and his parents built like a little platform in his basement where he had like a little turfed area and he could kick in his basement. So, here's a kid that even on the 20-degree days was putting in the work, but you see him at our field almost daily, now at this time of the year kicking. And I think, I really think he's going to be one of the best kickers in the entire state of West Virginia this year. So he's going to be a big weapon for us.
Right. And from a media standpoint, I know we were here a lot last year, almost every day of summer practice and things like that. And when you have people with cameras around a lot, it can go one of two ways with the players. They can either kind of goof off a little bit and try to get funny clips or whatever, but it seemed like these guys really took pride in the fact that someone was watching them at all times. Have you seen that out of them? How does that change a little bit? What do you tell those guys about not getting too immersed in the fact that people are recording them and asking them questions and things like that, but also just kind of embracing it and looking at the fun of it?
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, we really don't talk about it. We really don't talk about you guys being around. I think, from anybody listening to us talking, I think a lot of that probably has to do with, like me and you are both teachers in the school. I think it's kind of like that mutual respect that really every one of our sports programs has for each other. I think our kids respect the work that you guys do. I think your kids respect really all the sports teams that they cover. I wouldn't say just us welcomes you with open arms. I'd probably say really every sports team does that. But I think our football players. We got a lot of football players that play basketball, that play baseball, that run track. But even like the female sports, a lot of our guys. We respect the volleyball team. We respect the girls basketball team. You respect the girls soccer team. I think a lot of that comes from just the mutual respect that we have from a school standpoint. I think a lot of people maybe not know that, but we really don't have to talk about you guys being around. It's just like, hey, they're part of our team. They're around what we do. For us as a team, I think the hard work part's expected. So not saying you don't get those goofy clips, but at the same time, I think our players kind of universally know, like, hey, we're not here to joke around 24/7. We're here to practice. And then if that camera rolls by our face and we got to do a goofy face or, whatever crazy thing that they're doing, they can do that.
Yeah, I think our funniest moments last year just came when you would mic the kids up, and they would kind of try to whisper little things like that. But my favorite part last year was actually miking you up. Just the craziness, not the craziness, but that coaching adrenaline that comes out. Because if you sit and we can talk one-on-one for a long time and you don't really see that as much.
Right.
But as soon as that whistle snaps, you're out there and it's cool to see. Tucker, from your point of view this summer, what's the most interesting thing that you've been able to do just behind the camera, you think, and what's your favorite part so far?
So I think like my goal when I come out is just try something new each day. I think like it applies to media and sports. Like you're either working on a new skill, trying something new. So I try to try something new, whether it comes to video, photo, stuff like that. And so through doing different ways, I've just seen it through different angles, different points of view, and like sometimes like I'm out videoing everything, and I'll hear a kid say like, hope you got that on video," like after they do something, and I think it hypes them up, and I think it's fun for all of us just to do different things.
Yeah. So last year we did the Hammer Time, which was like a weekly series of interviews and practice footage and mic'd up. Tucker's kind of taking that over this year, but he's doing kind of a full season project. I'm going to turn it over to him and just let him explain that a little bit and get your thoughts on that.
Okay, so for the full season project, like it's hard to guess how a season's going to go beforehand. So I'm treating it as like kind of more of like a journalistic standpoint, like seeing what I get as I go, starting off and then taking it like one step at a time, building off what I already have. So the season, like I'm just trying to show, like my main thing I'm trying to show is like the spirit of Musselman and just like the kind of the fun part of everything, focusing on the work, but also focusing on like the spirit and all the school stuff involved in football. And so as the season goes, it'll kind of shift into different things, and I think it'll be really fun for the players and for myself.
For you guys as a team, what do you guys think of those things? I know we started this a couple years ago, and I think we had a fun conversation where we said if we look back 20 years from now, we could show our grandkids and things like that, just how good you guys were, even if you couldn't tell the score. So what does it mean for you guys just to have those memories to be able to look back on?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's neat. I think just kind of that goes along with a little bit of the world that we're in. You know, the social media. You know, everything's kind of out there now. You know, and people want to scroll, people want to see, people want to watch. You know, it's if it's not on video, if you don't see it, it didn't happen. So, you know, I think it's neat just because you have that. What's the word I'm looking for? You have that actual footage of it. You know, you have that I can't say that word.
Recollection.
Yes, recollection of it. That you can actually sit there and look back on it and see it. So I think it's really cool. You know, I think all the work that you guys do for every sport's cool. But it's neat in football to be able to see. You know, you get done a Friday game and you pop it up. You know, whether you post it on a Saturday or early the next week. Like, hey, here's a recap of the game, and you get to kind of see the like you said, even the moments. Like even, you know, not just the touchdowns, but then everybody's coming on the sideline and celebrating it together. I know last year you guys got some clips in the locker room of the guys, you know, just kind of the locker room scene. It's kind of cool to see the other things other than just the, hey, they snapped the ball, they scored a touchdown. You know, it's not just always that. So it's neat. You know, I appreciate what you guys do just because, you know, it highlights the kids that put in the work every day.
Yeah. I think in the same breath, I mean, I was just talking with some guys yesterday morning on the radio about how our program has grown, and I don't think that happens without the sports teams allowing us access to things, trusting us enough to be able to tell their stories without like, hey, you're gonna do us dirty or you're gonna make us look bad or things like that. It's tough to see a student with a camera and not think they're going to do something stupid. You know what I mean? So to build that trust with us and to build that trust with you guys, I think kind of goes hand in hand. As we grow, it's you guys sharing that success because we wouldn't be where we were without you guys. So last thing here for the season, you guys have a theme, a mantra yet pounded out? Any war cry or anything that sticks out so far?
Man, there really hasn't been like I don't know. I guess because we're not in like the official like camp time of the year, we haven't really had like hey, this team does this. You know, every team does something, has like a little thing. You know, Fleet's always kind of like what we hang our hat on, just because that acronym I think kind of defines the values that we want to live on. You know, we talked a lot about as a team, like, you know, being committed, being consistent. You know, that's one of the things that that's really one of the things that we've preached even in the off season, but even this summer. You know, as an athlete, you have to be consistent. You can't come in one day and be on top of the world and then the next day then be lazy, because then you're going to be right back at square one. You have to continue to kind of build every day. So, you know, kind of consistency and determination are kind of two things that we've talked about. You know, I don't know if I'd call that really our rallying cry, just kind of stuff that we've kind of tried to focus on this summer.
Tucker, anything else?
That's all. Yeah.
All right, Coach. Well, best of luck this year.
Thank you, guys.
We'll be there for the ride.
Tucker, thanks, man.
Thank you.
Yep.